Hi, my name is Brixton Ewald, and the book that I selected to read for this class is Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall. So this book really highlights the importance of telling stories, the best practices on how to tell stories, and just some of the most important types of storytelling. There are four essential story types that are talked about in this book. The first one is the value story, followed by the founder story, followed by the purpose story, and then lastly, the customer story. So the value story is the most important type of story when it comes to marketing and sales. If you think back to the famous sell me this pen, you need to try to create a need, create a value for the customer to want your pen per se. And so that's what the value story tries to get at, is companies trying to create a need for a customer to purchase their product. The second type of story is the founder story. So the founder story is something that is found in every single company, whether big or small, either successful, they failed. There is a story behind why this company was founded. The person that founded this company had a vision, they had a dream, and they wanted to achieve that dream. And this story is what drives stakeholder faith, because unlike the value story, for the founder story, you're selling yourself. You want people to invest in you. You are leading your company, and you want your shareholders and your stakeholders to believe in you and think that you're the proper one to lead this. The third type of story is the purpose story. Now, this story is centered mainly around alignment and teamwork. Something it mentions in the book is that as businesses grow, more people come. And whether that is employees or customers, the people that are coming, they're not entirely sure what they're getting themselves into. When you hire a new employee, they don't always know the company's values, what the company is truly after. And so that's what the purpose story tries to do. You want to pass along these values and pass along the foundation of this company to your future employees. You want to pass down these values, and you want to teach them about the purpose of what you do. So the fourth and final style of story is the customer story. Kendra Hall says that it is the most important story. And it's very similar to the value story, but the customer is telling the story. It's a story told by real people about a real product from a real company. It's not told by the company, it's person to person, and that allows people to connect on a different level because they can relate to it. There's a couple of facts listed in here, and I believe one of them was that 86% of people are pretty swayed by like online reviews and word of mouth reviews on a product, and that really influences them to purchase. So the customer story is a big part of how you get your product out there. Next, a couple of things that surprised me in this book. And the first is about the customer story. And I wasn't really expecting it to be the most valuable type of story. I kind of feel that when you're first starting your company, that the founder story is the most important part, because that's when you need people to buy in. You need people to want to come work for you and be a part of your vision. But I understand Kendra's reasoning as to why she believes that the customer story is the most valuable. And I definitely see that once your company gets to a certain stage in its growth process, then the customer story becomes the most valuable. The second thing that is mentioned later in the book that sort of surprises me is that stories can often tend to write themselves. And what I'm getting at with this is that if you have a moral or a lesson that you want to come from the story, that's the hardest part, is that moral and that lesson. Once you have that, it's fairly simple per se to build the rest of your story around that. But the most important part is having that moral and having that lesson. The last thing that surprised me were the similarities between the customer and the value stories. And she says in the book that they have the same ends of different means. And I think that's a great way to put it. Because even in the customer stories, the customer is willingly selling that product. When you go on Amazon and you make a purchase and then 2 weeks later you follow it up with a review, you are helping that brand or hurting that brand in selling that product. And that your review influences people. People will see it and they'll look at the photo that you attach to it. And it's something that they use to be influenced to purchase or not purchase the product. I know it's something that I've done whenever I go to purchase things, usually clothing. I always tend to look at the reviews, see if people think that it's comfortable, it's something that they enjoy wearing, it can be casual, it can be nice. And also specifically with clothing is the color. I found that with some things, it's definitely not the same color that when you look at it online and then get it, it's like completely different. As for the industry that is impacted by COVID that could really benefit from this book, and is education. This industry wasn't really mentioned in the book, but I think that it is the most important when it comes to storytelling. I think that teachers and professors should be some of the best storytellers out there. COVID caused the education industry to go into complete shutdown. I know we were remote for the remainder of my sophomore year of high school in 2020, and then all of my junior year, we were in a hybrid setting, and communication and storytelling became that much more difficult because students, including myself at times, would slack off. Some people would fall asleep, play video games, just go make food, take class with them in the car if they were going somewhere. And you really needed to be able to capture the attention of your students during this time because they weren't paying attention, and you needed to use all 4 of these types of stories to get through to them. I think that for professors, the most important thing is the value story. I know myself in certain classes have wondered, okay, I'm taking this science class, but I'm interested in doing marketing or accounting. What is this going to give me? And I think that's something that professors need to try to focus on. Is it's not always just about the it's not always just about what you're learning. There's a hidden meaning behind it. Actually, the first example in this book involved Extra Gum. Their sales were really bad, and I think it was in 2015 they released a commercial that caused their sales to skyrocket, even though their gum was only in that commercial for about one scene. For very briefly, it was just a girl handing a guy a stick of gum, and the commercial was centered around this love story that they had. But the gum was a very small part of it, but it caused people to form a connection and see that, okay, well, the value here isn't just the gum per se, it's also connecting with other people and sharing emotions and having shared experiences. I think that's something that teachers and professors can really benefit from is showing those hidden meanings and finding ways to get those across to students. And I know from my personal experiences that I am definitely a better listener when the teacher is a better speaker. There's definitely been times where I have not really paid attention as well as I should have because the teachers, they're very monotone and they don't have a lot of emotion. They don't talk about themselves. They don't relate things to real life experiences. It's just, all right, textbook, lecture, homework, done. There's no real life aspect. There's nothing that connects the student to the teacher in a humanly way. And I just really think that's something that the education industry can benefit from. And I think that COVID actually helped this a little bit. I think it forced a lot of professors to come out of their comfort zone. And some of the more old-fashioned professors were introduced to new technologies and using different ways of learning. I mean, I've definitely had multiple professors and teachers who've said, ever since COVID, I've completely shifted how I've taught, and I've shifted everything from on paper to some things online and some things more interactive to get students involved because they recognize that they needed to change some things. And I think the same can be said for students. I am not always the best listener, but there were teachers that I had online that I really listened to, and I didn't just sit at my desk on my phone. And they made it interesting and, most importantly, easy to listen to and easy to connect with. So that's just my 12-minute review on this book. I definitely recommend checking it out, especially if you are interested in improving your storytelling abilities.